Let's start talking. I wanted to have this thing going up now.
Hey, I can't start this show without our intro music. What's going on with that?
Okay. Okay, goodness, guys. We're live on Facebook and we're live on Zoom now, folks. Sorry we could not do the radio today. The station is down, and Ken, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me.
Yeah, I can't hear you. I don't know why, but nah, I'm just kidding. Okay. So there's a little lag between the Zoom that we are doing and Facebook, and everyone is looking good. Thank you so much for joining us, folks. The WCPT got whacked by something, I guess a virus or something. So the station is not having the internet and phone lines live today.
I think
So
one of the Thunderbirds for the Air and Water show inadvertently hit the tower or something on a flyby, but
nah.
That's the only outcome. Yeah, that's the only reason.
Okay, remember, even if we are not live on WCPT, facts matter, Ken. Okay, so
yeah,
don't
okay, whatever.
don't make up those kind of facts, I guess. So hang on one second. I got Dylan calling me in. Let me see what Dylan has to say. While you continue, Ken, continue the conversation.
Well, hello everybody. It's been a pretty
Good morning, Dylan.
interesting week. Does anybody
Yes,
have
we are
anything
live
that
on
they
Zoom
want
and
to
Facebook
share with
now.
the class that they feel that's really important and what
So
happened?
you're coming into the studio or how are you doing it?
Nope, we're just doing our office over here.
Okay, you're gonna do it like through you guys' system. Okay, for sure. And then what are you gonna send me something or should I do a replay?
Mohammed, mute yourself, Mohammed.
Okay, you guys keep talking, okay?
Here, I can see if I can mute him. No, I wanted to talk about the Alaska summit, the Donald Trump and Putin Alaska summit.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey there, I speak Alaskan, don't you know?
Oh, is that actually how they sound? Is that actually the
No, I
accent?
don't. I just made that shit up. But go ahead. So, what do
Oh,
you
it's
want to say
That's
about that?
Canadian. Yeah, that's
That's good.
Canadian. I mean, I think Trump was quoted saying, and I don't really know. I don't really want to like speak super ill, but I know that I should. Um, he said, "There is no deal until there's a deal." What does that even mean? What is like in
Um,
regards to the deal that he wants to make with Putin to end the war? Like he just sounds ridiculous. And
yeah, yeah, yeah. You got a good point there. I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying, and it's just, he likes to consider himself the big negotiator, the big deal maker, and whatever. But again, this is a guy who's claimed bankruptcy six frickin' times. Okay, he is about as much business sense as well, as my pet turtle, and I don't even have a pet turtle. But I'm just thinking that, yeah, he likes to boast and be really proactive on what he's trying to say, but there's no substance there. So I don't know. I mean, um, Adriana, what do you think?
See, when it comes to Trump and Putin, it just feels like these are two immature adults having conversations, and the people that are at risk are their countries. And nothing's being solved. It feels like the same thing over and over again. We want to stop the war. We want to stop the war. And instead, it's okay, well, I have nuclear weapons. I have nuclear weapons too, and they keep threatening to use them against each other, and it just feels like another war that's never going to end because two individuals' egos are way too big.
it's kind of like a masculine. I don't. It's like, for lack of a better term, it's a masculinity measuring contest.
Mm-hmm.
No. These are just two people who are just, trying to show off to each other. I was looking at the cost to the taxpayers, guys, for these trips. It is crazy how much it costs for the president to just get out of DC. The White House has not responded to multiple media requests now for the cost of this so-called summit, but the average cost for a presidential trip out of Washington is typically several million dollars per trip, okay? Let's look at some of the key expenses. Air Force One costs The operating costs are about 142,000 to $200,000 per flight hour. Okay?
Hey, by the way, Mohammed, I just want to interrupt real quick.
Sure.
That is more money than Carl and I make in a day.
Well, for instance, now, if he goes to Europe or Hawaii, where he went, or for the Alaska summit, $2 to $6 million just for the aircraft alone. Now, we are doing this freaking thing on Zoom. Why can't these guys get on Zoom and do it, right? It's one of the secure communications that we are paying for. The security, logistics, and staff for each trip includes costs for the Secret Service protection, other security personnel, the lodging, the meals, the vehicle motorcades, advanced teams. Security alone can cost hundreds of thousands to several $1 million. Uh, Let me get some numbers for you guys, okay? The Government Accountability Office estimated that President Trump's four early trips to Florida to go play golf at his golf course cost about $3.4 million each.
And that doesn't even include the greens fees.
Oh, I'm telling you, man, this is so crazy. So Trump sets up this entire thing to deflect from what is happening in Trump world, right? With all the crazy stuff that he's been doing, that this is just pure deflection, nothing else. And that is what my view is. I want to see what the panel has to say for this.
Hey, speaking before we go there, what's the deal with Dylan? Are we on live or are we just going to be presenting this later on? What's
No,
the deal?
we are actually playing one of the older shows in WCPT today. Okay. Because the internet was down and they're having major issues. It is happening to everybody. So it's not just WCPT, but that's life, man. Life sucks sometimes. You got to go with it and play with it. And by the way, Reed has joined us. Good morning, Reed.
Good morning, everybody. Boy, I'm glad that I'm here in Vegas instead of Chicago today with all your storms. So I'd rather put up with 110 degrees.
Okay. So we got everybody on the
But
screen.
it's a dry heat, right?
Dry heat, yes.
But let's come back to the topics for today. The summit, so-called summit, was a an abject failure. Nothing was resolved. The killing continues in Ukraine and Gaza, and we are just sitting over here hoping that the president, and I'm going to put that in air quotes, the president, because I think Putin is really driving this whole darn thing, not our president.
Mm.
Something should be done about this, folks. And with the midterm elections coming up, the biggest thing that you all can do is go register to vote, especially the younger people out there. You can make a difference. Go register to vote and come out and vote. And before you vote, educate yourself on the issues. Try to find out who is actually representing your interests, and then make sure that those people who are not representing your interests do not stay in power. It is as simple as that. When we formed the country and the Constitution was written, it was supposed to be of the people, by the people, for the people. And I don't think that is happening.
Hey, Reed, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I've been wondering this myself. Okay, now as far as Zelensky, the president
Zelensky.
of
Zelensky, Ukraine.
Zelensky, yeah, like the president of Ukraine, whatever. Where do you think? I mean, he wasn't even invited to the summit, which is crazy as anything. But where do you think his bottom line is going to stand? I mean, it's like, Putin and Trump are negotiating things that they don't even have a dog in that race compared to his country. Where do you think that may be going? And what do you think is his bottom line and what he's willing to do, if anything, that's different than just get the heck out of my country?
Uh, they're two sovereign nations, and Putin's on this crusade to rebuild the greater Russian nation, almost like a USSR situation again. He is considering Ukraine to belong to Russia. Obviously, Ukraine is an independent sovereign nation. They have been for a while, and I think they're going to remain that way. I think Zelensky has demonstrated amazing courage, and I don't think he is going to relent on any more territory being taken by the Russians. He might cede Crimea to them. They've had it now for about 10 years when they invaded the last time. But giving any more territories, I don't see him relenting on that. And Putin got a big surprise when a few years ago he thought this was only going to be a 2 or 3 week long engagement and they'd conquer Ukraine and now it would be part of the greater Russian Empire. But it's not
You
going to
really
happen.
think Crimea's on the table? I mean, I would find that amazing because that's like prized possession for Ukraine. And to be honest with you, I personally don't see him giving that up. But you think that's in play?
Well, I don't think he's going to, in principle, give it up. But I think just by the idea of might making right, Russia's had it in its possession now for almost a decade, and I think they want it back. They're always going to claim it as part of their territory. When I say they, I'm talking about Zelensky. But Putin has by force taken over Crimea. Now he wants to take over the rest of the country, and Zelensky, I think, will die before he allows that to happen. This is going to be a continuous war, and the United States has got to get behind our ally. Ukraine is our ally. And if Trump doesn't do it, I think that Ukraine is capable of holding out with the support of the European Union, holding out until we have a new president here. It might take 3.5 years, but I think that Ukraine is capable of holding out just that long. Hopefully, with our assistance, it could be shorter. But without our assistance, I think it will take all 3.5 years. And I believe the European Union will help them with weapons.
Well, one of the things that perhaps most people did not pay attention to, the Russian defense minister or the people who came with Putin to the summit, the guy was wearing a T-shirt saying USSR on it.
Really?
Okay. Yep.
Oh.
So that shows their real intent is they want to bring back that greater Russia that was there with the USSR. The guy actually wore a T-shirt with that on it. So for our president to invite this guy who is a war criminal, and by the way, our president too is a convicted felon, and to
He's
have this,
invited Netanyahu to the White
yeah,
House. He's also a war criminal.
and for this guy to sit in the presidential limousine with our president driving down together, I mean, this is beyond ridiculous, folks. It is. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to dump on Trump, even though I would love to every morning.
Hmm.
Dump on Trump. I like it.
Yeah, but this does not represent the values that our country should be exhibiting to the rest of the world.
No, Mohammed, it was an embarrassment. Trump acted like a little lap puppy dog, and he let Putin run the whole show, up to and including the end of it, where instead of them taking a press conference where Putin would take some questions, he just, well, I'm done here, folks. I'm heading to my plane back to Moscow. I'm not taking any questions because dictators don't take questions from a free press. And then he throws his puppy, a little bone rather, saying, well, if you had been president back in 2022, there would never have been a war,
Oh, yeah, sure.
which
Yeah,
is what Trump
sure.
says all the time.
Okay. So, folks, this is the lightning strike live on Facebook today because we had some issues with the signal, and you all know what happened in the Chicagoland area with the weather. The weather has been like real crazy. And I think I want to bring Dali in a little bit on this. So, Dali, global warming. Our president and his cohorts seem to think that there is no such thing as global warming. There is no environmental impact on drill, baby, drill, and burn all those fossil fuels to generate electricity. And I wanted to get your take on the impact of this big, what were you calling them? The generative AI stations and all of that.
Yeah,
The
the AI platforms and servers that are
Oh,
now.
and by the way, Carl, please tune in with Dali on this because Carl is an expert in terms of environmental, and he's our segment producer for science, environment, and that type of stuff too. So if you guys can interact on this, that'd be great.
Okay, so folks, Dali Silverberg and Adriana have joined us as production interns and producers for the younger set with issues that are of top of mind for them. So when you set up a data center, what happens, Dali? Walk us through this.
So, I mean, as far as I know, and Carl, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, in order to get AI servers running and like stuff like ChatGPT, we have like warehouses that are all over the United States, and they're filled with computers, which are the servers, and they take intense at like so much energy to run and stay alive that they use water for cooling and just like system processing. And Trump and especially Elon Musk, they're huge supporters of AI. They've like allocated like $500 billion to expand research in AI and development. So this kind of means, I mean, to me, it means that these warehouses aren't going away anytime soon. ChatGPT isn't going away anytime soon. Even Google Search AI isn't going away anytime soon. But it uses like ChatGPT alone uses 10 times the amount of energy to bring in a search than Google. And this is, I mean, this is like insane because there's warehouses that are placed in a lot of vulnerable places in the country that take fresh water, like they abstract fresh water, and the electricity bill is going up. Like this is affecting a lot of people, a lot of citizens, and not only that, but I've been seeing ChatGPT being used at my school, and my school is a writer's college. They would call themselves. And there's people who should know how to write complete research essays and you know, basically inform people and start their introduction with the proper thesis statement, but they can input the prompt into ChatGPT, and that chat, like the robot can write a 10 to 20 page essay in less than 5 minutes. And it's insane. And these are college undergrads who are going in to get a major for English using these systems. And it's discouraging because when you see that and you see the students that are using ChatGPT and all those other quote unquote tools to help themselves, you also have to take into account the waste of water and energy that is being used by each prompt and each question. And so I think
Yeah,
it's just
yeah. No, so I mean, I understand what you're saying. I mean, I think there's a couple different things you're talking about. I mean, one is using of a tool, which is AI. The other is, how does that tap into resources? And there's no doubt about it. I mean, data centers use 25 times as much energy per square foot as any other type of warehouse. So the amount of energy that they use is unbelievable. And the reason why they use water to cool the system is because it's just more dense than air, right? And so, but at the end of the day, it's Newtonian physics. You can't destroy or create energy. You've got to get rid of it, right? So data centers, they use a ton of energy on the front end to do the data processing, and that creates heat. And so you have to keep the servers cool by either cooling them with refrigeration, with air, or with water. So that's why they use a ton of energy. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I don't know a way around that. I mean, it's like, I talk to people all day long about how to save energy. Well, turn off your lights. I mean, that's the best way. Use less energy. But, at the end of the day, there's always geopolitical and social implications of using a new technology. So I don't really know what the answer is. I do know this from a scientific standpoint. Data centers use 25 times as much water and as much electricity as your average thing. So, that's a big concern, especially when you're in areas where there's there's a lack of the grid or a lack of energy. Now, why do they put them out there? Because the land is cheap, right? I mean, if you're in the middle of nowhere, it's cheap to buy land, and those data centers are huge. So it's an issue for the developers of the data centers as well.
Well, and that is something that most people are not understanding. I know technology is good. I know that we have to progress with the times, but no one is actually being trained on how to use this technology effectively. Like I was reading something the other day, when you put in a query in ChatGPT, if you use more words than is necessary for the query, it shoots up the amount of data, the amount of energy that is used to create that data exponentially. Okay. So the costs go up also. If you use just the word, for example, you say, please write this or design this or write an email. If you were to use the word just please in there, it shoots up the amount of energy that is used to answer that query. So the generative AI that is out there is something that people have not been trained on how to use that also. So I think maybe there should be some kind of a college course, or at least maybe we can do something on this, guys. How about we put together a short segment on just this one topic? What do you young guys have to say on this?
On how to
Well,
use AI properly. Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say, there are colleges are starting to have AI classes. Last semester, I took a class that was creativity writing with AI, and it was just a class on how to use ChatGPT, Gemini. There's, oh my goodness, there's another one. It's escaping my brain at the moment, but they are starting to have classes, and it was a little surreal for a college student because you are told throughout your entire high school into college career that, hey, you can't use AI. Everything, single thing that you do not use AI. We have tools such as my college uses turnitin.com, where it AI scans to make sure that there is an AI being used. And now all of a sudden there are classes saying, hey, we want you to use ChatGPT, we want you to use Gemini, all of these image developing websites and essay developing websites. So that way you're aware of how to use it, but don't use it in other classes.
You know what, Adriana, that's a great point. And you have to look at the whole AI environment as it's a tool. It's like when I was growing up, a freaking pocket calculator was like amazing. Okay, you're going to go into the math class and you've got a pocket calculator and someone catches you, you're in big trouble. But no, it's a tool that needs to be mastered and used to your benefit, not as a substitute for your thinking, but as something that puts your productivity more in focus is my thought on that.
Now, Ken, my where I was going with is that has there been any thought given, Adriana, in the classes that you attended about the impact of using these things on the environment? How much energy? Did they even think about those things?
They didn't say anything about data
That's
centers and how it affects the environment. They look at it as here is a brand new shiny tool,
yeah.
and we want people to be experienced in it because, and how they packaged it in a very neat little bow was that this will help you get jobs in the future. When in reality, it's going to help kill the environment, but don't worry about that right now. What you're going to be focused on is getting a job. If you're killing the environment, it's fine because you won't be here when it's completely dead.
Yep. And that is the point that I wanted to make, folks. It's like nuclear energy when it came out, right? If you are not using it productively and controlling the use of it, that genie, when it's out of the bottle, it's very difficult to put it back in the bottle. And that is something that I think we need to start educating our listeners and our audience on is, yep, it is great. Technology is great, but please learn how to use it effectively. It's like giving a sharpened sword to a monkey and not expecting it to hurt someone or to hurt, itself with that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that nuclear energy thing up because Carl had a segment a few weeks back talking about, basically barges and stuff that have very scaled down nuclear plants that are totally safe. It's not like a Chernobyl thing off your coastal line or anything else. But there are technologies that are being developed right now that, if used effectively, can help address this issue for AI servers and a number of other things that we need to do, as well as doing solar and other projects too to make things work in
Yeah,
the future.
okay. We are 24 minutes into the show, guys. Can you imagine it? No phone calls coming in, no ads running on the show. So we're doing pretty good. And our person of the week was going to be Dr. Dina's Cologne. And obviously, she's not joining us today. She will be joining us on the September 7th show. And starting September 7th, folks, we'll be coming on from 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock in the morning, live on WCPT with the lightning strike. So I want you guys to please mark your calendars for that. Let us switch gears a little bit and read. You wanted to talk today about the Voting Right Act of 1965 and, related to the redistricting battles that are going on in the country as we speak. Uh, can you go ahead and take the lead on that one?
I'd be happy to. It does have an historical context to it that I want to get into a little bit and why it poses such a danger to our democracy. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 basically is the result of the 15th Amendment to the Constitution, which was ratified in 1870 to protect the political rights of Black Americans. And it includes the right to vote and equal representation. It says that states shall not use race, color, or slavery as a basis for qualifying to exercise the franchise. In other words, you can't keep somebody from voting because they happen to be Black. Disgracefully, in the opinion of Americans who do actually believe in democracy and its principles and the Constitution, there have been many notable attempts since 1870 to evade the clear meaning of the 15th Amendment, especially through Jim Crow laws as they have been used in the southern part of the United States. These devices, I just want to give you a rendition of them because a lot of younger people may not know about them, are using a grandfather clause to keep people from being able to vote. The grandfather clause basically exempted illiterate white people from having to take a literacy test to be able to vote, whereas they would apply that to Black people. They would use things like long-term residency requirements to be able to vote, or tricky little poll tax payments, or something as silly as having to guess the number of jelly beans in a jar, being able to exercise the vote, believe it or not. And again, literacy and understanding tests. So some of these devices were harder than others to define what the purpose of them were, but most of them were pretty obviously they were designed to keep Black people from voting. So in order to forcefully enforce the 15th Amendment, the Congress passed the Voting Rights Act of 1965. It has been one of the most successful, if not the most successful pieces of legislation to protect the voting rights of Black people. And it was precipitated mostly by the fact that the nation saw a shocking thing on television back in March of 1965 when a lot of civil rights activists tried to walk across a bridge, the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, on a march to the capital of Alabama to demand the right to vote and to register to vote for Black Americans. And they were met with the violence of state police. There had been some murders in the town before the attempted march, but the governor then sent the state troopers to stop them from marching. And there was a lot of violence that the nation had never actually witnessed before until it got televised. So that was the reason why the 1965 Voting Rights Act actually got through Congress, because the nation was shocked at it, which bespeaks well of the country that we have decent people who are not into race discrimination, but unfortunately, there's a big part of the country that is into race discrimination, even to this day, when it comes to voting. Now, with the Voting Rights Act, there are two sections of it that give it its force, the most important part of it. Section 5 was a section that required states that had historically discriminated against people on the basis of race when it comes to voting. Section 5 required that those states have to, whenever they have a voting registration law that they propose, it has to be cleared by the Attorney General of the United States in advance of its implementation. But unfortunately, that back in 2013, there was a case came out of Alabama, Shelby County versus Holder, in which the Supreme Court voted 5-4 that pre-clearance requirements were no longer necessary because naively they believed that, oh, this discrimination doesn't take place anymore, so we don't need that kind of a formula for having Section 5 be active any longer. So we're going to call Section 5 unconstitutional. Congress has got to come up with some other formula if you're going to have pre-clearance. That effectively killed Section 5, which was basically the meat of the Voting Rights Act. But there's another section, Section 2. And Section 2 basically has been used by individuals because it gave individuals standing to challenge governments whenever they were going to, say, set congressional or legislative voting districts, or going to have some kind of new registration requirements, that an individual could challenge the purpose behind that if it looked like it was basically to discriminate against Black people. But that section had recently been upheld as still constitutional by the Supreme Court. There was a case called Allen versus Mulligan that came out of the state of Louisiana, where they have 6 congressional districts. One needed to be drawn in a way, the boundaries, so that you could have a majority minority district. That was okay, according to the appellate court, that said to the state of Louisiana that, look, you got 6 districts here. None of them have any Black representatives. 40% of your population is non-white. They are entitled to some kind of representation, folks. So you got to have one district at least. In fact, you really ought to have 2 districts. The Supreme Court upheld that, but the Supreme Court has recently decided that it wants to rehear that Louisiana case. And so in the next term, they're going to bring another case out of the state of Louisiana, which challenges the whole concept of majority minority districts as being violative of the constitutional rights of white voters, that they should not be forced to have to share representation with Black folks. So that's one challenge to Section 2 that's coming up. The other challenge is that there's a case coming out of North Dakota that says that, you know what, Section 2 shouldn't even be something that an individual can use as a basis to go to court to sue a state government. This should all be totally within the purview of the federal government. And so it's should be left up to the federal government to enforce voting rights acts. So it looks like the Supreme Court is poised to rule in the favor of the plaintiffs in both of those cases, and will probably strike down the Voting Rights Act in the very near future. The next term, both of these cases are going to be heard, and it just disturbs me because this concept that you can have a race-neutral type of solution to a problem that has been historically racially conscious is just absurd. You can't do it that way. It's not going to work. And but it looks like we're going to try to use some kind of race neutral kind of approach to solving what has been a racial problem. And you can't, it's a racial problem, folks. So you have to take race into consideration when you're coming up with solutions. I think that requiring a majority minority district or 2 is probably the only practicable way to solve historical discrimination and the things that deprive people because of the lack of representation in Congress. So
Wonderful.
That's what's coming up.
Thank you, Reed. This was a master class, folks, in what is going to be happening with the Voting Rights Act. Hey, Reed, quick question though. You keep on referring to 2 races, but what about us brown guys, man?
Well, I'm including that generically.
I can see Adrianna smiling over there now. Right, Adrianna? We're actually going to be the majority in this country pretty soon, my friend. And then you go look at it. Okay.
Well, that is
I was born a poor Black child.
Yes, Ken was born a poor Black child, and I was born an unspoken child of Queen Elizabeth. and she never claimed me, and I'm trying to claim my heritage. But no, eventually we're going to live in a nation where race is going to be totally irrelevant. But right
Absolutely. I
now,
Yeah,
mean,
Reed, I came up with an idea. I think it was last week or the week before, and I think this might be a possible solution is that you take gerrymandering and you just abolish it completely. You take the, what is it, Mohammed, 750,000.
734,000 each
Okay.
congressional
So you
district
got
at this point now.
734,000 people per district.
yeah.
You put a geographical boundary around each section of that in the country. And what you're going to have is you're not going to have red states or blue states. You're going to have purple states, and people are going to be voting in their own best interest. And the people who they're represented by, the congressmen, will have to be beholden to them and not to the party. So, I mean, if we could just change the whole mathematical concept of how, districts are drawn, I think that would probably be even a better solution in the long run. I don't know if you agree or not, but
Well, Ken, in a perfect world, that would be a great solution. But in this world that we live in, that is actually controlled by specific
oh,
interests,
absolutely. I don't disagree. And maybe
that's
I
not
should
going
be
to
running for
happen,
Congress and
right?
you can be my chief of staff. I
And
don't know.
not just that, we are looking at, even when we look at the social media world now, there is so much control by just a few entities into what we can read, what we can hear, what we can listen to. And on that, I want to bring in Adriana to talk about the protest and the politics of protest. Adriana, how do we get around these barriers that are being placed into actually discussing things that are of interest to us as the people in the country?
So there is so much happening in the nation right now that we are not aware of. Now, people may say that we saw the protests on June 14th when it was the No Kings protest. We saw that it was televised and the protests have just kind of went away. That's what the news wants you to think. But that's just kind of the beginning of what America is angry over, of what is happening in politics, particularly with Donald Trump and his administration. Now, for the past few weeks, you don't really see protests. You may see a few here and there, but they are way more it's a lot more than what we think it is. And there's rumors that if you speak out against the government or those in office, then your content's taken down or not shown on an algorithm-based social media platform, which is all social media. Now, like we say that rumors are not fact until proven so. Well, we're kind of proving that fact. Now, to take a step back, the top 3 social medias right now are Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Well, CEO Mark Zuckerberg owns Facebook and Instagram. He's the CEO of Meta. And way back when Trump was first brought into office again in January, he wanted to ban TikTok because it was owned outside of the US government, and government officials claimed that China was stealing our information, spying on America's. But the other narrative was that the US government wouldn't be able to control TikTok's content like they can if they wanted to do so with Facebook and Instagram. Now, when the presidential election was happening in November, Trump kind of saw that, oh, Republicans and MAGA individuals are using TikTok to boast me and benefit me. We can put a hold on TikTok for now. That's what this narrative is kind of promoting, even though they say that they're going back and forth with China trying to strike a deal. But we're waiting for this platform to go dark again in September, because that is when the next hold is, because it was supposed to go dark in February. Didn't
Yep.
happen. Pushed it back to, I believe, May. Didn't happen. June, it keeps getting pushed back more and more. And at that point in time, everybody was saying, oh, Gen Z, what are they going to do without TikTok? Whereas Gen Z was like, we don't really care, but we want to be able to get our voice out. Now, with those 3 social media platforms, if you search a protest, you're going to get a mix of protests that happened on June 14th and some that are happening today. Now, there also have been news sources that haven't been discussing these protests. You don't see it so much on ABC, NBC, CNN, CBS, wherever you get your news from. And if you do get some coverage on a protest, it's maybe 30 seconds and then they move on to the next thing. So, to prevent this, social media users have been using an alias to get around this social media based algorithm. And in California, they have started using LA Music Festival 2025. That's a code name for protests now. This has been also used in other major cities such as Texas, Chicago, and New York. Here in Chicago, they have to kind of change around the words just a little bit because we just had Lollapalooza. Because when you search a music festival in Chicago, that's the first thing you're going to get. But they kind of changed it around to Chicago 2025 Music Festival. And this has worked across all social medias. Like, this isn't just one or another. Every single social media has this. And it's people protesting against ICE, the war in Gaza, human rights, healthcare, and the National Guard coming to different cities. And these aren't small numbers. You see people filling the streets, blocking off streets because they are so enraged with what is happening. And they want to voice their opinion against whether it be Donald Trump, whether it be certain government officials in office, or just the fact that they see people suffering and nothing's being done about it.
You know, Adriana, you're so right on that. While you were talking, I Googled what are the current protests in the country. Okay. So Google is telling me that currently there are large-scale protests across the US, primarily focused on opposing the Trump administration's policies, particularly on immigration and what some view as authoritarian actions. And then it goes on, here's a more detailed look at the current situation. No King's protest, exactly like what you said, which occurred in June. And where are we now today? We are in August, right? Second week. They're talking still on Google about the No Kings protest, which occurred in June, and anti-Trump sentiments. There is no specific links that I can go to and see where are the protests in my town, where can I go and join a protest. Nothing on that. I have to really dig deep. And for our country, where the uh, civic sense is not so good, people don't even go out to vote when it comes time for the elections. Do you think a lot of people are going to find out where is their protest that is in their interest and go join it till it is actually thrust into their face? And that is where they have this meta power, for lack of a better word, and controlling public sentiment and public, outrage. And you are so right to point it out. Folks, you're listening to The Lightning Strike, and today we are actually coming live on Facebook and on our Zoom platform. If you would like to join the conversation later on, please send us a message. You can actually record a message on our recorded line, which is 312 TLS 8182. You can always leave a message for us on that, and we would be happy to play your messages back on the air when we come back on the air starting next week. And starting September 7th, we'll actually be coming on about 2 hours from 8 in the morning till 10 in the morning Central Time, all over the world, over here, based out of Chicago and WCPT.
Hey, Mohammed, let me just reiterate what you just said there, and this is important. Back when I was in college, I was a DJ on a radio show, and the name of my show was called The Bitch Line, which was kind of a fun thing to do at that time. We got a lot of good rep on that. But that number that Mohammed just gave you, the TLS 8182, if you call and leave like a 30 to 40 second rant on whatever it is that's important to you, we will put that together in a segment and play that so you can share your ideas or your thoughts with the universe. So I'm just letting you know that.
Thank you, Ken. And folks, we have a lot of stuff still to talk about, and we got about 20 minutes to finish off the show. But hey, we don't have a time limit on this. We can go for 2 hours if we want. Not that you guys would want to, okay? And not that you would want to be listening to us. But Carl, what do you have on your mind for this week as to what is happening in the scientific world that we should be aware of.
Yeah, so one of the buzzwords these days is this circular economy, right? Which is coming up. I was at a conference earlier this week, and they were talking about the circular economy and how that affects things. And it's kind of interesting because from a technical standpoint, there's a lot that's going on with regard to product design and using AI. We were talking about AI, digital tools to
Mhm.
actually design products from the beginning so that they can have a life cycle beyond just unidimensional, right? And so, they're looking at supply chain transparency. What in the supply chain can be used over and over again and recirculated in this circular economy, new world that we're living in. 3D printing, 3D printing is something that's really taken off in the last 4 or 5 years, where you can actually print parts out of recycled material on site. You don't have to wait. You can literally program it in the morning, and in the afternoon have a part that would normally take you months to actually source from somewhere else, and you can reuse use recyclable materials. So that's a key thing with this circular technology. The Internet of Things, right? I mean, this is where devices are getting smarter and smarter and getting more efficient with regard to manufacturing, and how these components can be reused and recycled. And again, the recycling technology. In the solar industry, we talked a little bit about this, Ken, the other day. There's a new study or a new technology that came out of the University of Japan, where they can take the material from old solar panels, which, by the way, at the end of their life, which is somewhere between 12 and 20 years, the person that installs those solar panels has to figure out what to do with them. Well, this new technology out of Japan takes the sand, which is basically what generates the electricity when it's activated by the UV light, and you can use that to filter smokestack smog. So they've come up with a technology where they take the old material out of the solar panels, and rather than putting them into a dump or a
Mhm.
landfill, they can actually recycle that to help reduce carbon emissions from smokestacks, which is
And
pretty
that is
interesting.
something that I had shared with you, an article on that also, if I
Yeah.
remember correct, right, Carl?
Was that you, Mohammed, that shared that
Yeah.
with me? Yeah, it was pretty interesting stuff. And I guess they're doing it in Japan, which will eventually, filter everywhere else. So, and then also just the sharing of the platforms, right? And so this is what's going on. A lot of companies are really embracing this the circular economy concept, which makes sense not only for the environment but also economically.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the IoT thing, the Internet of Things. This was a concept that goes back almost 10 years, if I remember correctly, when this term first started floating around. And I had thought that it was dead, but I'm so glad that you mentioned it. I try to keep my ear to the ground on what the heck is happening technology-wise and politics-wise, and that keeps me young, okay?
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, and you're right. We're old enough to know that, but those devices that they can monitor the usage and the condition of products. They can give insight into when maintenance is required to be done. They can talk about the end of life of those products. So that Internet of Technology, or I'm sorry, the Internet
Internet
of
of Things,
Things,
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
is really key.
when you're driving downtown, you will see some of these trash collector bins. Okay, you know that they were installed by a company. I'm trying to remember the name of the president of the company. The guy is also on one of the boards for the workforce system.
Waste management?
No, it's not waste management is the big company, but these little things that they put up, they have a chip in them that actually reads when the bin is full and needs to be picked up. So the trucks are not unnecessarily going there and picking up like a half empty bin. And that goes straight back to the company, and they decide their routes for the trucks based on which bin needs to be picked up and which does not need to be picked up. There is so much the environmental impact of these trucks. I mean, this whole thing is so well designed. It's crazy. And this was like God, 2016 when I left the system, the workforce system, to start my consulting company. this was active starting then.
Was it Groot? Is the company Groot?
I don't remember, Carl, off the top of my head. It'll come to me.
But
Okay.
you know what? It's interesting you say that because in the old days, if you ever go down, I used to own apartment buildings. If you ever go down an alley in Chicago, any building with more than 6 units, you have to have commercial garbage, pick it up, right? And
Yeah.
so if you'll notice, the bins are color coded. There's yellow ones and orange ones and red ones and blue ones and green ones. You know why that is? Because the drivers usually you would drive and they'd look down the alley. If they saw one of their bins, they'd go pick it up. If they were the company that had the green ones or the company that had the blue ones or the red ones or the yellow ones. And it was completely and totally inefficient because it had nothing to do with whether the bin needed to be picked up.
Yeah.
It's just the drivers were just driving around. And when you have those trucks on the streets, they're causing problems, including they're polluting the environment.
Yeah, it's not just polluting the environment, also they are messing up our roadways. So there's so much more that can be done if you actually use the smart technologies that are out there. Adriana and Dali, thank you so much for joining the conversation today. It was so nice. I actually wanted you guys to have your radio, debut today in a big way, but I guess Mark Zuckerberg had a different take on that. He didn't want you guys to be on WCPT today. Trump, Ken, I want to round off the show today with the impact of Trump's tariffs. And most people, uh, when it is not top of mind, people forget about this, that the way that this moron, to use Ken's word, has messed up the economy for us. Uh, People are really not paying attention because it's like the frog in the hot water. We all heard it, right? If you put a frog in cold water and slowly turn up the heat, the frog is like feeling comfortable till it becomes to the boiling point when the frog is actually boiled alive. That is what is happening to us, folks. Uh,
Frog soup.
Trump's tariffs have had a very significant and largely negative impact on the
Well,
U.S. economy.
actually, we're just not even seeing the beginning of that right now. And
Well,
think of it as T-fist. Okay, I like that
yeah,
acronym. I made it
I
up.
love that
T-fist.
word that you came up
And
with.
that T-fist means Trump's federal sales tax. And that's exactly what this is. When he comes and he says, okay, these tariffs, we're going to make billions of dollars. Well, yeah, you're making billions of dollars, but you're taking them literally from every consumer in the United States. So it's costing you something. So if you're buying a product overseas that can be made cheaper overseas than it can be made in the US, and we ship them, say, raw materials. They make the product, they ship us back the product. The benefit is to everybody, both the country that we're, quote, putting the tariff on and to us, because we're going to overall pay less for that product. When you put a tariff on anything, you are immediately increasing the inflation rate because that product that cost you $100 now is going to cost you 120 or 150 or whatever, which is basically the definition of inflation. So a tariff is like the most idiotic thing that you could ever do to your own country. And for some reason, most people don't understand that concept. So if you know anybody, please explain that to them.
Well,
Yeah.
Ken, let me follow up on that. Here's the real GDP and the impact that is having, okay? Overall now, in the US, the real GDP growth is about zero point 0.5 percentage points lower in both 2025 and projected for 2026 due to the tariffs and resulting foreign retaliation. The long run size of the US economy is now estimated to be about 0.4% smaller. And don't let those percentages get you off, guys. 0.4% smaller equals $125 billion annual loss. And this is coming from the budget lab at Yale. So anything that I talk about over here, I got the sources. And so it is not something that I'm pulling out of thin air like Trump does. The unemployment rate is zero point 0.3 percentage points higher, with payroll employment down by over 500,000 jobs by the end of 2025. Hiring has slowed, especially in industries that are hit hardest by the tariff-related cost increases and reduced export demand. This was the discussion on NPR that I was listening to. And what does our president do? He fires the person who was in charge of statistics at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS, and he brings in one of his own cronies now, who's totally going to mess up the numbers with no regard to what is actually happening. Inflation in consumer costs, prices have risen, Ken, with the average household now losing $2,400 per year in purchasing power. So
Okay,
look at
I just got to
shoes.
say, Mohammed, real quickly, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm putting you on notice. If you change my statistics, you're going to be fired next week.
Well, I'd like to just add a qualification to what Ken was saying is that
Yeah,
tariffs usually only make sense if you already have a strong domestic manufacturing base. Then I can see the argument for having a tariff because you're protecting domestic manufacturing. But we don't have that in America. We don't make anything here hardly anymore. And another aspect of these tariffs is that Trump is using it for his personal gain. I mentioned before how he's dealing with Vietnam. And he has decided that, oh, I'm going to reduce the tariffs on Vietnam. And why? Because the Vietnam government paved the way for him to get really cheap land there, displacing farmers in Vietnam so that he can build a golf course there. So
it's
he's
all
going to.
about him. It's all about him. Look at this. Clothing, shoes, and apparel prices have seen an immediate increases up to 39% for shoes. Okay, so Adriana, Dali, you're not going to get those new shoes that you've been wanting, guys. I mean, I'm just, going to wear my old shoes till they fall down on me. But the producer price inflation is filtering down to consumers, leading to further price hikes. And was on CNN. Let's look at some of the sectoral effects. Read what you were saying. Uh, I remember, guys, that I'm one of the founders of the reshoring initiative in this country, and we wanted to bring manufacturing jobs back. We've been trying that for the past 15 years now, me and Harry Moser and others, right? But US manufacturing output is up by about 2%, but these gains are more than offset by the declines in other industries. Construction shrank by 3.6%, agriculture by 0.8%, mining by 1.4%. Advanced manufacturing is hurt, while non-advanced manufacturing saw some growth, okay? Let's look also at the trade deficit and fiscal impact of these tariffs. Imports have dropped, exports fell 16%, worsening the trade deficit. Tariff revenues are expected to raise $2.2 trillion over the next decade, but they don't come close to offsetting the economic losses or funding the national debt, contrary to some administration claims. And this was coming straight from Fortune magazine. Okay, so the $2 trillion that they're expected to raise are actually coming out of Americans' pockets, folks.
Tax. Yeah. Like
Yeah,
Ken.
and to top that off, too, he's talking about wanting to lower the interest rates through the Fed, and that is like the worst thing you could possibly do to stem inflation, because if you lower the cost of money, and that's what an interest rate is, if you're lowering the cost of money, basically people are going to have more money available and they're going to want to spend more money, which increases the demand. And you put that on top of the fact that the supply of the goods aren't coming in because of these quote tariffs. It's just going to do a spiral downhill, funnel into you know an
Well,
economic
Well,
disaster is basically what it's going to come down to.
so what can you expect from a person that has failed at every single business that he put
Oh,
his
no, no,
hand
it's only
into?
six. He's only claiming bankruptcy six times. Okay, that's all.
Okay. So, folks, let us summarize what happened over here now. Trump's tariffs have resulted in higher consumer prices, slower growth, net job losses, industry disruptions, a smaller economy, and minimal benefit now to federal revenue relative to the cost. Most economics experts and surveys, including Ken DeLuc as one of the experts, see that these effects are predominantly negative for the US and for global growth. And this is Pew Research telling me, and Ken, by the way, they did not have your name in Pew Research. I just put that in.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But this is what is happening in our country, folks. Please remember that midterm elections are coming up. Do not let these APACs and other PACs and all of those PACs buy your vote and buy your congressman and buy your senator. And also, I want to finish off on a very strong note over here. The Illinois Senate races are coming up. We got four candidates in the race now. We wanted to talk about the governor's race also today. We are not going to talk about that. We are almost out of time. We got 1 minute to finish off the show. Thank you all for listening in, and thank you, team, for joining us today. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Reed. Thank you, Adriana. Thank you, Dali. We will be hopefully back on WCPT next week if they can fix the things. And hopefully, I should be back on the air with all of you guys. Uh, Thank you again for joining today, folks. We have been on Facebook and Zoom Live, technologies that our president should have used to have that stupid summit that did not leave anywhere in Alaska, of all places. And the economy is shrinking as we speak, and so is Mr. Trump's. How do I put it? What is shrinking?
Approval
His
rating?
hands? Okay.
Approval rating. Yeah, there you go.
Approval
All right,
rating.
guys. You all have a good one.
Okay, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be seeing you all next week on the air. And if you want to join us, please do go to our website, tlschicago.com. We are also coming up with a new website, tlsradio.com, which is under construction. And I also wanted to thank Ray Hanania of rayhanania.com for promoting the show for us. And Ray, we will be back on the air and we will have more impact on what you are doing with some of the issues that you highlight on your websites and in your blog too. Thank you all for joining us. We'll be back next week.
Thank you.